Previously on Game Gengo.
足が挟まって喋ってないと焦る。わざと転んでみたの。
Hello everyone and welcome to Game Gengo, the video series where we learn Japanese through video games. In this episode, episode 11, we are now starting chapter 2. So this is a very interesting chapter. We have a lot of interesting scenes coming up. In this episode, we are now kind of surviving the explosion and working our way through the tunnel out to the city. So in this episode, we're going to be learning 25 new words, and we're also going to be focusing on かもしれない, which means maybe or perhaps to show a possibility. So let's get into the video.
All
爆弾はレシピ通りに作ったはず。でも気化した魔法が反応してるのかも。
これは町まで行っちまったかもな。
町より星だろ。星の命ちょっとは伸びたかな。
そうじゃないと困る。さあ外に出よう。ここ8番街でしょ。
まだ先っす。
よし先導してくれ。
了解っす。
全員いるな。
Okay, so starting off the episode, we have Barrett making sure that everyone's here, and he says, Zen iru na. So zen means everything. In here is for people or members. So he's saying all the members are here, everyone's here. Zen iru na. Iru means to be for animate objects like living things, cats, dogs, people. So aru is for things, right? Like pen ga aru. But iru is for people and living things. And so here he's saying zen iru. So is everyone here? Nah. So he's just checking in a manly way. So here we have in the English translation, looks like we made it, or the literal translation, everyone's here, right? zen iru na.
怪我はねえみてえだな。
And so Barrett looks around and he says, it looks like everyone's okay. It looks like no one's injured. So he says, 怪我はねえみてえ. So, oh my god, Barrett, so much freaking slang. So we have kega. Now, kega is a really normal way of just saying like an injury. So, do you have an injury? That would be a kega. And so he's having a look. Does anyone have any kega? Does anyone have any injury? No. So, kega wa nai. Kega wa ne. So that's the casual. And then we have mite, which is again slang for mitai. So if we have a look at the next bit of language, now mitai means that you resemble something or you look like something or something like. So he's saying that it looks like everyone's not injured. But this mitai can also be added to a lot of things to say that something resembles something. Maybe you have a cookie and you're like, oh, look at that cookie. It looks like a pizza. So you could say pizza mitai, right? Pizza mitai. It looks like a pizza. Sono cookie ga pizza mitai desu ne. It looks like a pizza. And so this is a really common way of saying that something looks a certain way. And so that's exactly what he's saying. He's saying it looks like kega wa nai, kega wa ne. So, kega wa ne mite. It seems no one is injured. Or the game translation, and with nothing but a few scratches to show. So in the English translation, he's just added a few scratches and bumps, which makes sense. There was a huge explosion. If there weren't any injuries, it would be quite strange considering they were at ground zero of the impact zone. So they just added a little bit more detail in the English version.
爆発が派手すぎねえか。
Now, for some strange reason, the explosions are still continuing, and Barrett's a bit concerned, so he says, wasn't that explosion a little bit too flashy? So he says, 爆発が派手すぎねえか? So, 爆発 means the explosion. ga hade. Now, hade is a really common way of saying that something looks kind of flashy or showy. So here, if we have a look at the definitions, showy, loud, flashy, gaudy, lots of different ways of saying just, whoa, really stand out, right? So he's saying that the explosion is really, whoa, really stand out. So it's a very common way of using this. You could say someone's outfit is really, whoa, it really stands out. It's very flashy. So you could say, oh,ちょっと派手すぎるじゃない? So you can say, oh, isn't that a little bit too flashy? So it's really kind of has that sparkly image of really flashy. So he's saying the explosions is a little bit too much, right? So sugiru, as we covered, means too much, and then ne is nai, the casual form. So bakuhatsu ga hade sugine ka? Isn't the explosions a little bit too much? Now in the English translation they've said, think you might have overdone it. So that's a pretty common way of saying the same thing. Wasn't that a little bit too much? Don't you think you overdid a little bit there, Jesse? The explosions are still going on. And so here Jesse's saying that she's pretty sure that she followed the instructions on how to make the bomb just like it said on the recipe or the kind of how to make list. And so we have bakudan wa, so the bomb, as for the bomb, recipe dori ni, so to go as the recipe says, tsukutta hazu. So tsukuru means to make something, and hazu, as we previously covered, is showing that you think something should be the case, right? It's not super certain, but it's pretty certain, right? It should be the case. And so she's saying that I'm pretty sure that I made it just as the recipe said. Now in the English version, she's much more certain. She says, I followed the instructions to the letter. So just exactly. Now that's a little bit different. In the Japanese version, there is a degree of uncertainty here. Jessie is a little bit unsure. She's a bit surprised herself that the explosions are so big. And so she says, hazu, tsukutta hazu. So she's pretty sure. It should have been the case. But in the English, she's very certain. She says it's to the letter. It's perfect. And so here we can see that uncertainty, and Jessie's kind of questioning herself, and she's going, oh, but maybe it reacted to the vaporized mako. And so if we have a look here, demo, so but, kikka, which means vaporize. So ki means kind of air, and then ka means to change as something. So kikka means to be changed into air, vaporization. Kika shita, so vaporized. Mako ga hanno shiteru no kamo. So if we have a look, mako means mako, and then mako ga, so what is the mako doing? Hanno shiteru, which means that it's reacting, okay? So the vaporized mako, kika shita mako, ga hanno shiteru. So the vaporized mako is reacting, and then we have no kamo. And so no is just the feminine emphatic particle used at the end of sentences to show emphasis, and then kamo is showing that she's uncertain. So kamo is actually short for kamoshirenai, and this is what we're going to be focusing on later in this episode, but just very quickly it means maybe, perhaps, possibly. So she's saying that there is a chance that it's reacting to the vaporized mako. Demo, kikka shita mako ga hanno shiteru no kamo.
これは町まで行っちまったかもな。
So next, we're seeing some concern by Barrett for the town. So he's kind of worried that the explosion may be affecting the surrounding area. And so he says, Korea machi made ichimatta kamo na. So Korea means kore wa. So he's talking about the bomb. This thing, this bomb, kore wa, Korea. Machi made. Now, machi is the town. So the surrounding neighborhood, the machi. So he's saying, machi made, until the town, ichimatta. So ichimatta is again, you are so good at teaching us slang language, Barrett. It is itte shimatta. So it's that shimao form that we covered previously, which means for something to happen that is kind of unwanted or to completely happen. So here he's saying that it may have completely gone all the way to the town, or it may have regretfully gone all the way to the town. So machi made ichimatta, itte shimatta, kamo na. And so we're seeing that kamo again, so kamoshirenai, which means maybe or possibly. And then he has a na, which is just the masculine ne. So it's saying right, or kind of just showing, in a way, he's softening it a little bit. Instead of saying that it definitely is the case, he's kind of asking for approval from everyone by saying nah. So just asking just a little bit of approval. So he says that this may have gone all the way to the town. And in the English version, he says, well, let's hope the city's in one piece. So that's a pretty good way of translating it. It sounds a little bit strange in English if you were to say, well, it may have gone all the way to the town. It's just not very natural. So here the translator has clearly just added some more natural language and said, well, let's hope the city's in one piece, which is exactly the intentions that he's saying. It's just not the same words.
町より星だろ.
So because Barrett was showing some concern for the town or the kind of city, here Biggs is being a nice guy and he's showing some kind of support for Barrett, and he says that, hey, you know, more than the town, what's important is the planet. And so he says, machi yori hoshi daro. So this is quite a common expression in Japanese. When you say something yori something, it means more than the first thing. The second thing is what's most important, right? You're choosing this over this. And so some people may have heard of a Japanese drama series from around mid-2000s, 2005-ish, called Hana Yori Dango. Hana Yori Dango means hana, flower, yori, more than, dango, boys. So it means boys over flowers, and that is the English translation of the manga or the TV drama, Boys Over Flowers, Hana Yori Dango. And so here he says, machi yori hoshi daro. So more than the machi, more than the village, the planet is what's important, hoshi. So this is a really useful expression to say that one thing is more important than the other. So you could say, for example, kenko yori pizza daro. So more than your health, pizza is what's important, right? So it's just an expression that you can use to show that kind of comparison. And so in English translation, they have said, but the planet's what matters, right? So he's referring to the town in the English translation, just he hasn't actually said it. So he's saying the planet is what matters most. Machi yori hoshi daro.
星の命ちょっとは伸びたかな.
And so here Biggs is showing that he really hopes that it's actually been worthwhile, and so he says that I wonder if the life of the planet has extended a bit. So he says, Hoshi no inochi, the planet's life, chotto wa nobita kana. So chotto means just a little bit, chotto wa, so as for just a little bit, nobita kana. Nobiru means to grow, so to extend. So he's saying that he's hoping that the lifespan of the planet, because it's been under stress from the mako being absorbed out, hopefully this has extended it just a little bit more. Nobita, just made it a little bit more. So in the English translation he says, I mean, this must have helped some. So he's referring to the fact that it's helping the planet because we stopped the mako being sucked out. And so in the English and the Japanese, Biggs here is showing some uncertainty and that he's hoping that what they've done is the right thing.
そうじゃないと困る。
そうじゃないと困る. So here Jesse is saying that if what Biggs just said isn't true, then it's gonna be a problem. So so means that way. So she's talking about what Biggs just said. So she's saying that way, じゃないと, if it's not that way, komaru, I'm going to be in trouble, I'm going to be bothered. So saw that way. So janaito we covered last episode, and this means that if it's not the case, and usually it means something bad is going to happen. So it needs to be, it must be a certain way. So we had Jesse say, shabete nai to aseru. If I don't talk, I'll be in a panic, I'll be in a hurry. And so here, so janaito, if it's not that way, komaru, I'm going to be troubled. And so here Jesse is also showing some concern for everyone's actions blowing up this Mako reactor, hoping that it was all worthwhile. So the literal translation, if it's not that way, it'll be a problem, or the game translation, after all that, it better have. So just quickly, this komaru is a very useful word to say when you're kind of bothered by something, you're in trouble, you're kind of perplexed, you're like in a bind, right? If you're like, komatta na, means crap, I'm in a problem now. Things are not going well. Komatta na. Something is kind of in a bind, you're not going well, you're kind of at a loss for something, you're stumped. So there's lots of different ways you could say this in English, but it's a very useful expression in Japanese to say that there's a problem and you're not sure how to fix it, right? So maybe something happened at work and you just don't know how to fix it and you're so troubled by it. You're like, komatta na. It means that you're, troubled by it.
さあ外に出よう。ここ8番街でしょ。
Well, let's go outside. This is Sector 8, right? Sa. Well, 外に出よう. Let's go outside. ここ here 8番街でしょ. So 8, 8, ban number 8, and then guy. Now, you may have noticed this guy right here. We just saw this kanji and it was machi. So when it's by itself, it's machi. So when you just talk about it as a noun, it's machi. But here where it's connected to another word, it actually is pronounced gai. So gai means a street, a district, or kind of a quarter. So you could say District 8 instead of Sector 8, but Sector 8 sounds really cool, doesn't it? It kind of sounds kind of steampunky, kind of futuristic, and so that's clearly why they've chosen Sector 8 rather than District 8. So this is Sector 8, right? ここ8番街でしょ? 8番 number 8 guy sector でしょ? Right? So the literal translation, well, let's get outside. This is Sector 8, right? Or the English translation, anyway, let's get going. We're in Sector 8? So exactly the same, just worded differently.
まだ先っす。
Madasakis. So here, Wedge, you can very clearly tell that it's Wedge speaking because it has that s at the end. So mada means still, saki is ahead. So he's saying it's still a little bit ahead, Sector 8. Madasaki, which is just des. And so s here is a casual way of being polite. So you have des, which is being polite, but sometimes that's a little bit too polite, and so it is contracted to be more casual. So it's showing here that Wedge is a kind of polite guy, and he is. He's that lovable guy that no one can really hate, and he's very polite and nice to everyone. And so that's that language that he's using here. Madasakis, madasaki desu. It's still a little bit more ahead. Now in the game translation they've said that'd be just down there. And so this shows that he knows where to go. As you may remember in the previous episodes, he was securing the escape path, the nigemichi o kakuhou shiteiru. So he was securing it, so he knows. That's why he's guiding everyone. So Madasakis, just a little bit on ahead.
よし、先導してくれ。
Yosh, sendo shite kure. So, okay, alright, yosh. Sendo suru. Sendo means to guide someone, to guide the way, and then shite kure means do it for me. So, yosh, alright. Sendo shite kure. Guide the way for me. And so here, the literal translation is, alright, lead the way for us. But in the game translation, alright then, lead the way. So it's exactly the same. Just in Japanese, it's really important to take note of this nuance here where you have te kure. In English, we don't usually say, thank you for doing this for me. But in Japanese, it's very common to add this te kure, to show that someone is doing the action for you. It's very common, very useful, and so it's an important thing to say to show that someone is doing something for you. If he just said sendo shite, it feels a bit too ordery. It doesn't really show any appreciation. It's very rude. Sendo shite kure is showing that, Wedge is doing this for Barrett. He's leading the way.
了解っす。
Roger. So the last bit of language we're going to be looking at in this episode is ryokai. So ryokai is to say Roger. It's kind of a military way of saying affirmative, agreement, I understand, right? It's a little bit strict. You could use it as a joke, right? If someone says, please do this, and you're like, Roger, right? It's a very similar context. Ryokai is usually used in the military. So it's kind of a military expression. You might not use it in your daily life, unless you were being kind of silly and you're just being like, yes, sir, or Roger, right? Ryokai. It kind of has that image. So you wouldn't use this all the time when you're saying, I understand. For that, there's lots of other expressions like, Hai, wakarimashita. Or also, kashikomarimashita. Shouchi shimashita. Shouchi itashimashita. Uketamawarimashita. Or things like that. But ryokai is the Roger. Okay, so the grammar that we're going to be looking at in this episode is kamo, or kamoshirenai. Now we use this when we're talking about some possibility. For example, it might be, could be, or maybe, right? So when we're not sure, we use kamo. And if you want to be polite, you use かもしれない. So in Japanese, we use this when we're guessing or assuming what will happen in the future, what is happening right now, or what happened in the past. So we have two really good examples of how this grammar is used from today's episode. So first, we have Jessie saying, でも、気化したマコが反応してるのかも. So maybe it's reacting, the Mako vaporization. So here she's being uncertain. She's not saying it definitely is because of the vaporized Mako, but she's saying it might be. So, kamo. The next one from this episode is こりゃ町まで行っちまったかもな. So it may have gone all the way to the city. And so Barrett is saying that he's not sure if this explosion has been affecting the city. So there's a lot of uncertainty in both of these examples. Jessie's not sure if the explosion was caused because of vaporization, and Barrett is not sure if this huge explosion is affecting the surrounding area. And so the way to use this kamo or kamoshirenai, we don't have to do anything special, you just put it at the end of the sentence. So if you say, 難しい, it's difficult, right? That's an E adjective. 難しいかも. It may be difficult. 難しいかも. Or you could say そうですね or そう, which means yeah, that way. そうかも or そうかもしれない. It might be that way. So this is a really, really useful piece of grammar that you can use in your daily life every day for the rest of your life to show that it may be a certain way. Now in Japan, generally people don't speak as directly and state their opinions so directly. And this piece of grammar is so useful to make do in Japan by not being so direct. So for example, if someone asks you to do something tomorrow, but you don't really want to do it, instead of saying, 明日はダメ, that's quite rude, right? Saying, no, tomorrow's no good. You could just say, 明日は難しいかもしれないな. So you can say, maybe tomorrow's going to be a little bit difficult. Really, really useful. And so if you're wanting to put even more emphasis on it being a maybe, you can add もしかしたら. And so here in this example sentence we have もしかしたら来年日本に行くかもしれない. So it might be that I may go to Japan next year. So it's saying it twice. This is really common in Japanese. When you're wanting to put emphasis on something, you say it kind of twice. So mada, not yet. Mada mada, not yet. So it's just a very, very common way of saying it. もしかしたら. If that's the case, it might be the case, and kamo is maybe. So using a double uncertainty to make the sentence really uncertain. But it doesn't stop just there. So as I mentioned before, in Japan, people aren't so direct with the way that they feel and think about things. And so you may have guessed, if you, for example, were interested in someone romantically, instead of saying, その人が好き, it's very direct, saying, oh, I like that person. You could say, その人が好きかも. So that's saying that you might like that person. Now, it doesn't have to be uncertain. You are just being a little bit more subtle in the way that you're saying it. So I saw recently on Terrace House a show about a reality life in Japan, and whenever a person kind of confessed that they like someone, they said, 好きかも. And so it means, oh, I might like them. It's just a way of being a little bit more subtle and not so direct. And directness in Japan really kind of stands out. People usually are a little bit more subtle in the way they use language. So this is a really, really important and useful piece of grammar to show that it might be the case. そうかもしれない. It may be that way. Very useful. As always, I would like you to use this grammar in the comments section below. It's a really important chance for you to be able to use the language and get direct feedback whether or not you're using it correctly, and it will immediately help your Japanese skills, and it's a really good practice. So if you would like, please use kamo or kamoshirenai in the comments section below and get some practice using Japanese. Okay, so starting the review for this lesson, we have Zain. Now, zen-in means all members, everyone. Zain. Kega. So kega is an injury. Kega wa ne mitaina. It looks like you don't have an injury. Mitai. So it seems to be, or it looks to be a certain way. Mitai. So you use it when something resembles something. Bakuhatsu. So an explosion. Maybe you ate really hot food and it explodes. Bakuhatsu. Hade. So you have very flashy, showy clothes or a very showy, flashy explosion. Hade. Recipe. So recipe is recipe. Or in this context, it's kind of a how-to guide, which is what a recipe is. Recipe. Dori. So we've seen this used in sakusen dori, as planned, and so here it's recipe dori, which means as in the recipe. Tsukuru. So to make something, tsukuru. Kika. So here is the vaporization, the evaporation. Kika. Hanno. So hanno is a response or a reaction. So it could be like a chemical reaction, or it could be a person and you see their reaction to something. Hanno. Kamo. So short for かもしれない, which means maybe, perhaps, it might be the case. Kamo. Machi. So the town or the city. Machi. Chotto. So just a little bit. Chotto. Nobiru. So to extend, to make longer. Nobiru. Kana. So I guess, I wonder. Kana. Komaru. So to be in a bother or to be troubled. Komatta na. You're in a trouble, you're in a bother. Komaru. Sa. So alright then, let's go. Sa. Soto ni deru. So to go outside. Soto, outside. Deru, to leave. Go outside. Soto ni deru. Hachi. So the number 8. Hachi. Ban. So a number in a series. Hachi ban. We saw Ichiban, number 1, the Maker reactor. Hachiban, the number 8, sector 8. Ban. Gai. So gai here, same kanji as machi, but when used connected to a word, it means kind of a sector or a street or a district of something. So Hachiban gai means the number 8 district or sector. Mada. So still not yet. Mada, not yet. Yosh. Alright. Yosh. Sendo. So to guide the way, sendo. Ryokai. So Roger. Ryokai. Okay, fantastic job everyone. Hopefully you become familiar with these words. Let's get into the battle stage.
Zenいるな。怪我はねえみてえだな。爆発が派手すぎねえか。
でも気化した魔法が反応してるのかも。
これは町まで行っちまったかもな。
町より星だろ。星の命ちょっとは伸びたかな。
そうじゃないと困る。 外に出よう。
了解っす。
Yay, congratulations! お疲れ様でした. Good job, everyone. And now you have learnt 433 words. So this was a short episode. We've had some really big ones lately. This is just a nice short one. However, the next one should be a little bit longer, and I've actually finished the script for the entire chapter 2, and we've got some pretty big episodes coming up, so please look forward to that. So thank you very much everyone for watching. As always, please feel free to leave your comments down in the comment section below. I'd love to see how you went, how you found the video, and a big special thanks to the supporters on Patreon. Thank you so much for your support of this series. It is the most incredible thing. I never thought it would be imaginable to have people so passionate about the growth and potential of this series. So thank you so much for your support. As always, everyone, thank you very much. I'll see you again next time.